All right, the best drivers, what have they done over history? If you get stuck in YouTube one night, go look up at Jack Nicklaus, John Daly. There's so many good ones over the years. Tom Watson, Johnny Miller, more recent times, Ludwig Aberg, whichever. Phenomenal. A lot of common traits you see in what's happening there. Yes, they set up very, very well each time, and setup is an important piece of the equation, and then they create a lot of width and arc in their backswing. So setup, first of all, what do we see there? We know from looking at data, from looking at launch monitors, we want an ascending blow. This and the putter are really the only two shots you're hitting on the upswing. So you think about where you place a putter in your stance, we need a similar situation with the driver. We need the ball much more forward in the stance and kind of get comfortable with that. A great way to figure that out is put your feet together opposite the golf ball. I always like the grip on first, put your feet together opposite the golf ball, and then take most of your width of your stance with your right foot. Now the ball is forward in the stance here. Optically, that might be an issue for you at first, but try and get comfortable with it and see, can you get a pretty solid contact when you do that? That's where the best drivers have the golf ball. Now, you may not work quite as well from your trail side to your lead side, so you can play around with that sensation, but experiment with it further forward probably than you're used to having. Again, have some alignment rods here so that you know you're staying pretty parallel to your target line. I don't want to put the ball way forwards and actually be open. Essentially, that still will be back in my stance. If you look down the line view, a lot of great drivers over history look like they're going to hit it down the right side because the ball's forward in the stance, so you tend to catch it slightly more on the upswing, which would generally bring the ball back to the left a little bit. So you'll see a lot of these great drivers, they look like they're going to hit it down the right side of the fairway, ball goes very straight. So understanding how that works, if it's up, it's generally going to come left a bit. If it's in the back, it's generally going to go right a little bit. So understanding where you are here is very, very important. I always like players to hit the ball, see what their tendency is, and then figure out where to aim. What I find with a lot of recreational players is they get so caught up in where they're aiming, they don't make a very, very athletic swing, and that's what we need with the driver. This is not a precision instrument. As good as the best drivers hit it, they're still swinging very, very freely. So don't get like micromanaging everything with this club in mind. Really try and get the sensation you're swinging as freely as possible with this club. A lot of driving it well is that. It's the mental side of it. It's kind of being okay with some mistakes. If you're not okay being in the rough occasionally or occasionally in the trees, you're not going to release the hounds. You're not going to swing as freely as possible. So what I tell kids in particular is when you want to drive it better, have like a crazy 30 minutes on the range where you're just going to go rip it. And as for adults, just go be a kid again. Give it a good rip, see where it goes to. Back to setup. So we're going to try and get the ball forward in the stance. Don't get too caught up in alignment initially. See where your pattern goes to. If you feel as though you're a bit restricted as how you turn, like you think of, get down in YouTube, go look at some of the best drivers. You'll see a big turn, you'll generally see a big turning of the hips. If that's hard for you, try and go as far back as you can, feeling like you have width. If you look at the best drivers in history, they're generally not down in here. This is more like where you may be for a wedge, if you will. But they're much more creating width the entire time in the swing, creating some rotation. You'll also see some crazy finishers. You will see them kind of off balance at the end. When you're looking at a PGA Tour event, you're seeing people trying to keep it in play, and you're seeing very, very refined swings and players. Have some time where you're just not trying to be too refined with it. If you finish off balance, if you finish falling backwards, I'm okay with that, honestly. If you're trying to make it look really pretty, you're never going to swing fast enough. So it has to be, again, good setup. Figure out your aim as you're going along. Try and take as big a rip back as you can. Give it a good hit. See where it goes to. If you're off balance, not a problem. So no matter what we say about driving it better, you're going to get onto either a driving day itself or a particular hole and you're not comfortable. And you can give yourself all the pep talks you want, you're going to struggle. I've worked with all the best sports psychologists, with players, with myself, trying to get better over the years. And so one of the things they'll talk about a lot is acceptance. And so you got to hit the shot and accept the outcome, which sounds really easy standing here, but when you're on the golf course, that's very, very difficult. So there has to be a point where you kind of cut off and stop thinking, okay, if I think this correctly, it's going to work. The more I can get my players to take themselves from this threatening situation here, looking at this hole, and put themselves back into a semi-comfortable position of hitting a shot under practice. We've repped this so many times. Focus on what you're trying to do. Remind yourself of the keys that you need to do it with, like whatever your swing keys are. What I try and get people to do is that's a practice swing. That's a sensation of, okay, I'm over here. I'm trying to make sure, say for instance, I'm starting the backswing, I'm committed, I'm moving off. That's kind of a key for me if I want to hit it better. I'm not just standing here and getting too static, but I'm reminding myself of that sensation. And then I'm just getting here, I'm taking a look at where I want to aim, and I know, because I've done it a lot, and you need to do it a lot too, there's no magic here. I know if I do those things well, I'm going to get a pretty darn good result. And if I get a bad result, you know, try and accept it the best you can. One of the great things, Ted Lasso and then John Rahm adopted it, be a goldfish. Be okay with, I just happened to hit a bad shot that time. It doesn't mean to say that you're a terrible golfer, you can't do it better the next time. It just means that battle you didn't win. So on to the next battle the best you can. So try and get a sensation of what works for you. Focus more on what works for you. Focus less on what the architect's trying to do to you, and execute, accept, on to the next one.